Hi Laura.
Hi.
Hi. So thank you for filling in this sheet, which is about understanding your overextensions. And we're now going to take you through an exercise called Journey to Composure.
Okay.
So how did you find filling in the sheet?
Yeah, it was interesting to kind of think it through and break it down into stages. The questions really helped, and initially I left some boxes blank and came back to them.
Yeah.
So exploring it in different ways.
Yeah.
So I'm interested to see now what we do.
What we
with
do with
this.
it next. So we're going to take you through a process that basically covers all of the stages in this worksheet, but
Okay.
actually going to get you to walk you through it
Okay.
on the
On
Lumina
that.
mat. Yes. So
Wonderful.
you'll notice here on the mat we've got the overextensions.
Yep. Can see all the words. on
You
the
can see
slide.
all the words. So I'm going to start you off in that first box to ask you which overextension you selected to work with today.
So the overextension I've chosen is reliable to hesitant.
Right, okay, so what I'd like you to do is just to come and stand down by reliable, well actually by hesitant.
Hesitant.
Yes.
Okay.
So you're now standing on the overextension,
Yep.
and what we're going to do now is explore it a bit through this worksheet.
Yep.
So I'm going to start you off asking about the triggers. Give me a situation where you've noticed that this gets triggered, this overextension.
Okay. And this was the box actually I found quite difficult to sort of pinpoint what exactly is the trigger. So I took it back to actually the word behind this, the quality behind this of reliable.
Yeah.
And for me the trigger is just that. I have a high intention that I want to be reliable, I want to meet commitments. So the triggers I think is that if there's lots of people asking for lots of things, particularly in tight, short time frames, that can trigger me to go into the overextension of how am I going to meet all of those commitments at once with only a limited amount of time.
So what's the self-talk that you notice in that? What is going on internally as you get all these requests coming in?
Self-talk I feel is there's this and there's this, and I've flipped between things, and I feel internally there's this kind of excitability that I want to move between lots of different things at once and have everything in place. And I recognise that's not me at my most natural. My most natural is very much in this discipline-driven space that I like to make sure everything is in hand. So when I can feel myself going more towards that inspiration-driven space, I think the self-talk is got this and this and this, and I've got to Is that-
do it.
Yeah, that's
You've got
the
to do it.
self-talk.
And I also notice you talk about an excitability.
Yeah.
Can you notice any body sensation with that excitability?
Yes, I get quite probably louder and just feel more on edge.
Yeah, and just if I may, I can definitely see your body movements in terms of I see you
Yeah.
you're touching your stomach quite a lot, and you can see a bit of almost like a bit of a jumpy movement that you're very eager. That's what I notice in the body language, and your self-talk is this I've got to.
Yeah, and I've noticed that got to rather than have to or want to. It's that language.
And what's the fear if I don't?
It probably goes back to things that are important to me. So the importance is that being reliable, of honouring my word if I say I'm going to do things, and doing it to a standard that is acceptable to me, which is possibly higher, quite high, if I'm honest. And then the fear is not meeting that expectation.
That if I don't, then I won't meet the expectations.
Yeah. For myself and for others.
And now, can you explain to me what it might look like? What do you actually do in the overextension? How could I recognise that you are now in that overextension?
Initially, I might actually go a little bit quieter and be trying to work out how I can fit everything in.
Yep.
And then from there, it would go. If more commitments get asked upon me, then there's a hesitancy of where do I go next.
So the initial excitability is there as well.
So there can be. That's probably more of an outcome of it.
Okay.
is that initially I feel quite overwhelmed, and then it goes into that drive of right, let's get stuff done, let's do it, and that's where the excitability probably comes through. So almost it's a little bit of sort of panic to drive, hard driving.
Panic to hard driving. And what does hard driving look like? What might I see in the office?
So probably going to talk to lots of people. Possibly going into that excitable state of being more there, and
do you speak fast, or is there you talk about?
And I'm probably more direct. I imagine people might see feedback I've had is sometimes it can come across a bit like the Tasmanian devil. Kind of going all over the place. I think that's probably speaking faster.
How would you describe? I was just going to put it in as a Tasmanian. How would you describe the Tasmanian devil?
Kind of getting faster and faster, and everyone else like, whoa.
And that again goes with some of the body sensations, feeling
and
being on a
feeling
spin.
a little bit. There could be that perception of overbearing as well. So interesting couple.
Underneath. So what's the unintended result of these actions? What's the kind of result that could happen both for yourself and for others through this?
So what I wrote in this box was people probably feel quite overwhelmed.
So some of that.
So they might be like, whoa. Internally I feel the stress, so I feel that. And I wrote heavy burden, as in there's a lot of emphasis on me.
So suddenly I'm seeing, from having this kind of like quite excited, I suddenly see a bit of a slumped figure in terms of a heavy burden. So the result is a heavy burden. Can you say anything more about heavy burden in terms of the unintended impact on yourself?
A loss of composure, really, in terms of my head feels very overwhelmed, there's not space, as it were.
So suddenly the excitability has suddenly become
narrowing and
the change.
And almost a little. So the word hesitant. Initially, I was like, I don't see how there's the reliable to hesitant, but it is almost that. So if I use an analogy of sort of fight or flight, it's that sort of want to flee or kind of stay still, freeze. That's what it is, isn't it? It's that freeze. And then probably flight, which is me taking on.
And that's then suddenly getting into mode. But there's definitely a bit of a flip-flop between a quite excitable mode where you're a bit more like this in your body language to a quite, like an overwhelmed burden, which then starts to close down your options. So the flip-flop of those. So what we've been doing there is really looking around how you might identify it, how other people might identify it, and some of the emotions you might be going through, and you might be feeling some of that now, as we talk through it. So I'd like you just to take a step back, and just to take a deep breath. Maybe one more deep breath. And then to think, what have you done in the past to help you out in this overextension? What has helped you in the past?
Quite often it will be taking myself away from that situation entirely.
Now have the everyday qualities on it. Initially, I'm going to ask you to go down to this column here on your worksheet and just remind yourself of the power that you already have in terms of what you've done and said in the past to take you out of this overextension. So have you got an example of something you've done in the past that's helped you out in this overextension?
So in terms of what I say to myself, I almost have to step back and say, you are only one person, and just remember I am one person. I have the same amount of time as everybody else.
And how does that help you?
For me, it puts it into perspective that this is not a failure kind of thing. This is reality. Does that make sense?
Yeah.
So then that's one of the things I wrote, be realistic.
start hearing a bit of groundedness there from that excitable state.
Yeah, I bring myself to ground.
And then the overwhelmed state, and then now you're in a more grounded, realistic state, which is reminding yourself of your own limitations and that it's okay.
Yeah, it's okay, and it's not I've got to, it's I want to. Yeah. That shift in the language is really important for me.
Not got to, but I want to. Yeah. So now I'd like you to look at your portrait.
Okay.
So
do I still need my sheet?
Yes.
Okay.
So you keep the sheet just because you will have done a little bit, but just keep that behind.
Yeah.
So initially, looking at that portrait, we're looking at the everyday qualities.
Okay.
Yes, so Laura, you've got your everyday qualities in front of you. So we're choosing the everyday qualities because that's a more choiceful persona. That's a persona where you are in composure. Mm-hmm. So when you look at these qualities, which high qualities can help you out? So is there one that sticks out that we could start with in terms of something that can help you out?
The highest percentile here was logical.
Logical. So could I get you to go to logical? Okay. So how could you use logical in the scenario that we talked about?
So here it says objective and rigorously applies reason. Mm-hmm. So one of the things is that sort of objective evaluation of all of the things that I need to do. Mm-hmm. And is it a priority? Can it wait? Can it be passed to somebody else? Almost take a very down-to-earth approach with it and apply that logic of what can I do now and what can I do later.
Yeah, so that makes complete sense, and again just noticing the change in your body language from being very excited to being much more rational, which is what logical is about. Again, is there another quality that could help you out?
Yes, so there was a couple of qualities, and one of them that made logical sense to me was practical.
Right.
So coupling that together with the logical.
Okay, so I'll invite you to go over to practical.
Feel more at home.
So how can you use your practical nature in this scenario together with logical?
So here it says adopts a realistic and common sense approach. So it goes back to that, be realistic.
Yeah.
I think when I'm in an overextension, I almost let my head a little bit take over, and I probably in a way move to a big picture thinking space, and I need to return to my more grounded, down to earth. So the practical is being realistic and how long things are going to take and things. Yeah, is that realistic?
Be realistic is a good sentence for you to keep in your mind.
Be realistic.
Yes, and I know that you also mentioned about going to third quality. So what would that be?
So the third one I chose is one that was particularly high for me, and that's collaborative.
That's collaborative. Okay, so we can go to collaborative. If you stand there, yes.
Looking at collaborative. It's good for me to look at collaborative.
So we talked about being logical, being rational, being practical, as in being realistic, and now you're in collaborative. So how can collaborative help you as well?
To work with people. So it's not just about me anymore. Yeah. Collaborative is something that I really value, and probably don't draw enough upon, and I should go back to my more natural instinct for collaboration.
A positive way of remembering this, so obviously you've got be realistic as a sentence for yourself. What would be a sentence for you over here for you to remind yourself to step into this space?
You'll get more done if you do it with people than if you do it alone. Okay. Something along those lines.
Yeah.
That actually, what's it, the sharing a workload?
Should we just try and walk it through one more time? We start off with logical.
Okay. Lovely triangle.
Yeah, lovely triangle. So how would you remind yourself to be logical? What would be a way for you to
be rational about it, break things down, see the components, and think about the practicality, so being realistic, the realism part of the time available and how long things are going to take.
Yeah.
And then remember that you get more done if you share it with other people.
Yeah.
So asking for help is beneficial all round.
Yeah.
Just remembering how I can be. So to avoid that overexcitability that could trigger somebody else is actually to collaborate with people who are also are probably quite high on the reliable.
Yeah.
So they're going to also share that with me.
Yeah. And if I may, I can notice you being much more smiley, much more open than some of the body language. What I would like to do, just to end it off, is actually to get you to stand back on reliable.
Okay.
Just to see
so
the relationship with reliable, because obviously reliable is still going to be a big part of who you are. But, can you see the balance with reliable, logical, practical, and collaborative as a way in which
so
you could use it not to go into overextensions?
Next to it. It's quite nice that they are across from one another near enough. And it really highlights that it's these qualities in collaboration rather than independently. So in order to achieve reliability, I need to draw upon these other ones, which is where I'm going to focus.
That's where you need to focus. Okay, well on that note, I'm going to thank you very much.
Thank you.